Order. I will have order in the Galactic Council. Ambassador Krell pounded his chitinous appendage against the crystalline podium, sending vibrations through the massive chamber. His 6 eyes blinked in irritated sequence as the hundreds of delegates representing every known intelligent species in the galaxy gradually quieted down. We are here to vote on Proposal 7 Delta 9. The classification and subsequent utilization of planet Earth and its indigenous species, Krell continued, his mandibles clicking with bureaucratic precision. The motion, as presented by the Resource Acquisition Committee, recommends that Earth be designated as a Class 3 servitor planet and its dominant species be harvested for labor. From the upper tiers, a gelatinous blob shifted colors from its natural purple to an agitated orange. Ambassador Gloop of the Viscosians has the floor, Krell announced, barely hiding his distaste for the dripping delegate. Thank you, Ambassador Krell, Gloop bubbled, its voice translator converting wet slurping sounds into comprehensible speech. The committee's presentation was quite thorough. These humans appear physically unremarkable, but surprisingly adaptable. Their mental capabilities seem adequate for basic service functions, and their breeding rate is quite sustainable for ongoing labor needs. A tall, thin alien with luminescent skin raised a tendril. Ambassador Lumi of the Photosians, Krell acknowledged. My species has observed Earth transmissions for what they call decades. Lumi's voice resonated melodically. They seem overly emotional and perpetually distracted by trivial matters. Did you know they spend enormous resources on competitions where they kick spherical objects into nets, perfect for simple tasks where deeper thought isn't required? Across the chamber, various representatives nodded, tentacles waved, and appendages clicked in agreement. A squat reptilian creature with metallic scales leaned forward. General Zarks of the Draconian Empire, Krell introduced. Their military capabilities are laughable. Zarks growled. Primitive nuclear weapons, combustion-based aircraft, and ground troops still vulnerable to basic atmospheric alterations. My analysis suggests we could pacify the entire planet with 3 standard battle cruisers and minimal casualties. A small figure near the back raised a delicate hand. The Council recognizes Advisor Vexor of the Mentori, Krell said with obvious reluctance. Vexor stood, his large head seeming too heavy for his slender body. Distinguished colleagues, I suggest caution. Our initial surveys indicate humans possess unusual problem-solving capabilities and an unpredictable response to threat stimuli. Perhaps we should conduct additional research before. Thank you, Advisor Vexor, Krell interrupted. Your concerns are noted, but the Resource Acquisition Committee has already completed a comprehensive 12-minute study of human history and capabilities. Their conclusion is clear. Humans are clever enough to be useful but too primitive to pose any meaningful resistance. But sir, Vexor persisted, I've been reviewing their entertainment broadcasts. They seem oddly preoccupied with scenarios where small groups overcome technologically superior forces. It suggests a cultural. Enough. Krell's mandibles clacked loudly. We have a very busy agenda today. The Galactic Council must still address the critical shortage of imported snacks in the cafeteria and approve new uniform designs for the janitorial staff. Krell's antennae twitched with impatience. All in favor of designating Earth as a Class 3 servitor planet and authorizing immediate resource extraction. Throughout the chamber, appendages of all varieties rose in unanimous agreement. Even Ambassador Gloop stretched a pseudopod upward, though it drooped slightly, leaving an unfortunate puddle on the delegates seated below. The vote is unanimous, Krell announced, satisfaction evident in his clicking mandibles. Earth will be catalogued, its species indexed and appropriate labor assignments distributed. The acquisition fleet will depart immediately following our lunch break and mandatory wellness seminar. As the council adjourned, Advisor Vexor approached Krell privately. Ambassador, please reconsider. Something about these humans troubles me. Their historical records show remarkable adaptability under pressure. Their fiction repeatedly depicts them defeating superior forces through what they call thinking outside the box, a concept our translators struggle to define precisely. Your concern is touching but unnecessary, Krell replied dismissively. What could possibly go wrong? They're just one isolated species on one insignificant planet. The Council has enslaved hundreds of worlds without incident. Besides, I've already ordered the commemorative Earth Acquisitions coffee mugs for next week's staff meeting. As Vexor watched Krell scuttle away, he couldn't shake his sense of unease. He'd spent more time than most studying Earth's transmission, and something about humans' unpredictable nature and their peculiar blend of creativity and stubbornness left him wondering if the Galactic Council had finally bitten off more than its collective mouths, beaks, and absorptive membranes could chew. 3 massive battleships hovered above Earth's major population centers, casting mile-long shadows over terrified citizens below. Smaller craft zipped between skyscrapers, their scanning beams cataloging everything from infrastructure to ice cream trucks with clinical efficiency. Commander Drazistar stood on the bridge of the flagship Inevitable Conquest, his reptilian scales gleaming under the command deck lights. His ceremonial invasion cape billowed dramatically behind him, despite the complete absence of wind, a special effect he'd installed specifically for conquest announcements. "Is the planetary broadcast system ready?" he asked, adjusting his Galactic Domination Tour commemorative badge. "Yes, Commander," replied Lieutenant Plix, a nervous insectoid whose exoskeleton chittered with every movement. "We've hijacked all Earth communication channels. Their primitive digital networks were even easier to penetrate than predicted." "Excellent." Drazistar flashed his needle-like teeth in what his species considered a smile, but would give human children nightmares for generations. "Begin transmission in 3, 2, 1. Across Earth, every screen, from Times Square billboards to smartphones in rural Mongolia, flickered to display Drazistar's imposing visage. "People of Earth," he began, his voice translated into 157 human languages simultaneously. "I am Commander Drazistar, of the Galactic Alliance Acquisition Fleet. Your planet has been designated for immediate integration into our labor pool. Resistance is not only futile but would be embarrassingly brief. Please form orderly lines at our designated processing centers, bringing only one small bag of personal items and your preferred work gloves." He paused for dramatic effect. "To demonstrate our overwhelming technological superiority, we will now disable your planet's electrical grid. Consider this a small sample of our power." Drazistar turned to his weapons officer. "Activate the planetary EMP." "Activating, sir," the officer replied, pressing an elaborate sequence of buttons. Nothing happened. I said, "Activate the planetary EMP." Drazistar repeated, his voice edging toward what his performance coach had warned him was villainous uncertainty. "Sir," the weapons officer swallowed nervously, "the system isn't responding. It appears our command network has been infiltrated." Suddenly, every screen on the bridge changed to display a rotating cat video. A small tabby batted at a laser pointer while synthesized music played in the background. "What is happening?" Drazistar bellowed. "How did they penetrate our quantum-encrypted system so quickly?" Lieutenant Plix frantically tapped at controls. "Sir, it appears someone named L33 Thax 0R420 has bypassed our security protocols and oh no." "Oh no, what?" Drazistar demanded. "They've found our ship's environmental controls. The bridge lights suddenly shifted to pulsating colors while Earth music blasted through the speakers at deafening volume. "Drazisco mode activated," announced the ship's computer cheerfully. "Boogie Wonderland protocols initiated." Outside, horrified crew members watched as the flagship's external lighting system began pulsing in rhythm with the music, effectively turning the most advanced battleship in the galaxy into a floating disco ball. "Shut it down," Drazistar screamed, barely audible over what humans called "staying alive" by the Bee Gees. In orbit, Admiral Zex's command ship fared no better. "Supreme Admiral," a communications officer reported, "we've lost contact with our ground teams in a region called Silicon Valley. Their last transmission mentioned something about being recruited by tech startups with competitive salary packages and excellent snack options." Meanwhile, in New York, an alien scout craft hovered outside an apartment window where Jake Martinez, a 23-year-old community college dropout, sat on his couch eating cereal straight from the box. "Human," the alien scout announced through an external speaker, "prepare to be processed for appropriate labor assignment." Jake looked up from his phone, remarkably unfazed. "Dude, are you guys doing viral marketing for a movie or something? The CGI is sick. This is not entertainment, Earth creature, this is conquest." Jake sighed, putting down his cereal. "Whatever, man. Hey, your spaceship looks like it has serious cooling issues. That heat exhaust placement is all wrong." The alien paused. "Our thermal regulation systems are the pinnacle of galactic engineering." "Yeah, then why is your left thruster smoking? Amateur hour, bro." Jake pointed casually at the ship's underside. The alien scout's confidence wavered as he checked his system diagnostics. By the time he looked back up, Jake had somehow opened a maintenance panel on the ship's exterior and was casually rerouting wires. "What are you doing? Stop that immediately." "Just fixing your power coupling. It's cool, I took an electronics class once." Jake grinned. "Actually, I dropped it after 2 weeks, but I watched a bunch of YouTube tutorials after." Back on the flagship, Drazistar had finally managed to silence the disco music when Lieutenant Plix approached with what could only be described as the alien equivalent of complete panic. Sir, preliminary reports indicate the humans aren't surrendering as expected, Plix reported. They're adapting to our technology at an alarming rate. A group in Japan has already reverse-engineered one of our scout ships and is selling improved versions as limited edition collectibles. Drazastar stared in disbelief at the tactical display, which now showed hundreds of unexpected resistance points. This was supposed to be a standard Class 3 acquisition. How are they fighting back with technology they didn't even know existed 6 hours ago? Sir, Plix's voice dropped to a whisper. The Resource Acquisition Committee's report may have underestimated certain human characteristics. Outside the viewport, the commander watched in horror as his fearsome armada, pride of the Galactic Alliance, began to sparkle with unauthorized modifications, personalized graffiti, and what appeared to be several impromptu food trucks attaching themselves to the landing gear of his support craft. First contact was definitely not going according to the standard invasion handbook. 2 weeks after the initial invasion, Processing Camp Alpha 7 buzzed with activity as newly captured humans were sorted into work categories. Located in what had once been a community college campus in suburban Ohio, the facility had been hastily converted with alien technology into a labor assignment center. The results were predictably chaotic. Next, barked Supervisor Grack, a four-armed bureaucrat with skin like sandpaper and the personality to match. He stared at the human before him, a lanky man with perpetually disheveled hair and a faded t-shirt reading "I paused my game to be here." "Name?" Grack demanded, tapping his data tablet impatiently. "Jack Henderson," the man replied casually, as if he were at a DMV rather than an alien processing facility. "Age? 34, but I moisturize." Grack ignored the comment. "Previous occupation: maintenance technician at Riverside Mall. Specialist in fixing things that other people break," Jack answered, eyeing the clearly malfunctioning overhead lights that pulsed erratically. "Your ballast is shot, by the way." "Noted. You will be assigned to Maintenance Division, Sub-Level 5, Grack said, stamping Jack's file. Next, a woman stepped forward, her posture impeccable despite her rumpled clothes. "Dr. Mira Patel," she announced before being asked. "Quantum physicist specializing in theoretical applications of subspace manipulation. I hold 3 PhDs and once built a particle accelerator at a science fair using only household appliances and parts from a broken Roomba." Grack looked up with sudden interest. "A scientist. You will be assigned to our research division for study of primitive human technologies." Mira's eyebrow arched dangerously. "Primitive. I was calculating 11-dimensional equations while your scanning technology was still trying to figure out how my toaster works." "Silence," Grack snapped. "Your species' emotional responses are precisely why you're classified as a Class 3 labor resource. Report to Section 12 immediately." As Jack and Mira were escorted to their respective assignments, they exchanged a brief glance that contained volumes of unspoken communication, a particularly human trait that their captors had yet to fully appreciate. 3 days later, Supervisor Grack stood before Commander Drazastar, trying not to visibly tremble. "Explain to me," Drazastar hissed, "how a simple maintenance human managed to improve our atmospheric processors to the point where they now produce what humans call the smell of fresh laundry throughout the entire eastern section." "We believe it was an accident, sir," Grack stuttered. The human Jack claimed he was just tightening a few loose screws and updating the firmware, though we're still unsure how he accessed our software with nothing but a device he calls a universal remote from Radio Shack. Drazastar's scales flushed a dangerous shade of crimson. "And the physicist, what of her contributions?" Grack swallowed hard. Dr. Patel was instructed to categorize primitive Earth power sources. Instead, she somehow reconfigured our quantum fluctuation engines to run 30% more efficiently while simultaneously using them to, and I quote, "stream the entire Netflix catalog to Alpha Centauri." Meanwhile, in the maintenance tunnels beneath the processing center, Jack crawled through a service duct, a makeshift toolkit assembled from alien technology and items he'd scavenged from the human quarters. "How's it coming?" Mira's voice crackled through a communicator Jack had cobbled together from a broken alien translator and parts from 3 digital watches. "Almost there," Jack replied. "These aliens may have mastered interstellar travel, but their understanding of basic electrical safety would get them failed out of a community college intro course." He reached a junction box plastered with warning symbols in 17 alien languages. "Found their network hub. You were right, they're using a centralized system with almost no redundancies." "Of course I'm right," Mira responded. "Their entire technological philosophy is based on complexity over common sense. They've never had to fix something with duct tape and wishful thinking." In another section of the camp, alien technician Zbork was experiencing the peculiar human phenomenon known as customer service hell. "I don't understand," Zbork complained to his superior. The humans in food preparation division keep asking me to submit maintenance request forms before they'll fix the nutrient dispensers. Did you submit the forms? His supervisor asked. Yes. 17 of them. They claim each was filled out incorrectly or sent to the wrong department. One human told me I needed to call during regular business hours, which apparently aren't now. Across the camp, similar scenes of subtle rebellion were unfolding. Humans assigned to the communication division had introduced the aliens to hold music, and the phrase "your call is important to us." The transportation division humans had implemented a shuttle reservation system so convoluted that 3 alien officers had suffered nervous breakdowns trying to navigate it. In the command center, Lieutenant Plix reviewed the latest productivity reports with growing alarm. "Commander, our efficiency ratings have plummeted 78% since we began utilizing human labor," Plix reported. Yet strangely, all systems show technical improvements. Drazatar leaned forward, his reptilian eyes narrowing. "Explain." "Well, sir, our equipment performs better than ever, but nothing happens on schedule. The humans have introduced concepts like coffee breaks, casual Fridays, and something particularly insidious called mandatory team-building exercises. And you've punished these disruptions." "We've tried, sir, but they respond to threats with what they call malicious compliance, following our orders so precisely that nothing actually functions correctly." Drazatar slammed a clawed fist on the console. "These humans are exploiting our weaknesses." "What weaknesses, sir?" Plix asked, confused. "Our expectation of logical behavior. Our assumption that fear motivates all species equally." Drazatar stood abruptly. "Contact the Galactic Council. We need reinforcements, and see if there's a way to disable whatever part of the human brain generates this creativity." That evening, as alien guards patrolled the perimeter of Processing Camp Alpha 7, Jack and Mira met secretly with a growing number of resistance leaders from various work divisions. "The good news," Jack announced to the gathered humans, "is that their entire command structure depends on technology they don't fully understand how to repair." "And the bad news?" asked a former high school history teacher who now led the camp's documentation division. Mira's expression turned serious. "They've called for reinforcements. A battle fleet is on its way, led by someone called General Kix. Apparently, he specializes in stubborn species pacification." "Then we don't have much time," Jack said, pulling out a crude schematic drawn on the back of an alien cafeteria menu. "Here's my thinking. They expect us to either surrender completely or rise up in some dramatic doomed rebellion. So we do neither," Mira continued, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Instead, we're going to introduce our new alien overlords to some uniquely human concepts they never considered in their conquest plans." "Like what?" someone asked. Jack grinned. "Like unions, bureaucracy, and the absolute chaos of human workplace politics. Oh, and one more thing I've been developing in my spare time, an intergalactic version of what we call technical support hell." The gathering broke into smiles, an expression their alien captors had categorized as emotional weakness but was actually the first sign that the invaders were in serious trouble. General Kix's flagship exited hyperspace with theatrical precision, flanked by 50 destroyers arranged in the traditional fist of dominance formation that had intimidated countless species into immediate surrender. Known across 17 sectors as the Pacifier, General Kix had subdued rebellions on over 30 worlds, each campaign more efficiently brutal than the last. "Status report," Kix demanded as he strode onto the command deck. Unlike most of his reptilian species, Kix had cybernetic enhancements covering half his body, not because they were necessary, but because focus groups found them appropriately terrifying. "Fleet is in optimal position, General," reported his second-in-command. "Earth defenses remain primitive. We've established communication with Commander Drazastar's ground forces." "Put him through," Kix ordered. The main view screen flickered to life, showing a visibly disheveled Drazastar. His once immaculate uniform appeared wrinkled. His scales had lost their luster, and was that a coffee stain on his ceremonial invasion cape? "General Kix, thank the 7 moons you've arrived," Drazastar blurted, abandoning all military protocol. "The situation has evolved unexpectedly." "Commander," Kix's voice dripped with disappointment, "the Council reports your initial invasion force was more than adequate for a Class 3 planet. Explain your failure." "With respect, General, the classification was inaccurate. These humans are..." Drazastar lowered his voice, glancing nervously over his shoulder. "They're organizing." "Organizing what?" "Resistance. Guerrilla warfare. These are standard responses we've crushed countless times." "No, sir. They're organizing committees." Kix blinked in confusion. "Committees?" "Yes, General. First, it was a workplace safety committees that somehow gained access to our battle protocols and flagged 90% of our weapons as violating something called OSHA regulations. Then came the nutrition advisory boards that declared our nutrient paste a crime against culinary decencies and demanded snack options. Surely you didn't comply with these absurd demands, Kix growled. We tried to resist, but, Drazistar's eye twitched. Have you ever experienced something called a strongly worded email campaign, General? Our communication systems collapsed under the sheer volume, and now I spend 6 hours daily in what they call mediation sessions with human representatives who keep using phrases like circle back and touch base. Kix straightened to his full imposing height. Enough. I will take personal command of this operation. Prepare your most troublesome humans for immediate public discipline. When the transmission ended, Kix turned to his tactical officer. Deploy the subjugation core. I want examples made. 3 hours later, in what had once been Central Park in New York City, a massive alien dropship descended with appropriate menace. Armored troops marched out in perfect formation, surrounding a gathering of human representatives. General Kix emerged last, his cybernetic eyes scanning the crowd and automatically identifying potential threats. Finding none, he stepped forward. People of Earth, his amplified voice boomed. Your pitiful attempts at disruption end today. I am General Kix, and unlike my predecessor, I do not negotiate with inferior species. From the human delegation, a woman in a slightly rumpled business suit stepped forward. Carol Franklin, Human Resources, she announced pleasantly. On behalf of the Interspecies Labor Relations Committee, I'd like to welcome you to Earth. We've prepared an orientation packet. She extended a thick binder toward the general. Kix ignored the offering. There will be no more committees, no more disruptions. The next human who forms an unauthorized gathering will be vaporized as an example. Carol appeared unfazed. I understand you're upset, and we acknowledge your feelings as valid. However, according to Galactic Code, Section 7, Paragraph 12, which we found in your own database, any sentient workforce is entitled to collective representation. We've filed the appropriate paperwork with your own bureaucracy. She smiled sweetly. In triplicate, Kix's organic eye twitched. What paperwork? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Carol beamed, producing a tablet. We submitted Form GC 1557B, Application for Recognized Sentient Status, along with a GC 2445X, Petition for Labor Organization Rights. Your own system auto-approved them when no objection was filed within the standard 3-day waiting period. That's impossible. Our bureaucratic safeguards were designed assuming a maximum processing rate of 6 forms per solar cycle, Carol interrupted. We submitted approximately 27,000. Your system experienced what we call bureaucratic denial of service. Meanwhile, across the globe, Earth's military forces, previously thought neutralized, launched surprisingly effective counterattacks. Not with advanced weapons, but with something far more confounding, selective incompetence. In occupied London, Major Emma Daniels led what appeared to be a surrender of British forces. We completely submit to your authority, she announced to the alien commander, while her troops handed over their weapons. Wise decision, the alien replied. We'll need forms, of course. Major Daniels continued innocently. Surrender documentation, weapon transfer receipts, chain of custody verification, forms. Oh yes, our military regulations require 47 distinct documents for a proper surrender, each requiring your personal signature, I'm afraid. Regulations, you understand. 3 hours later, the alien commander was still signing papers while, unnoticed, key components from the surrendered weapons had mysteriously disappeared. Back in New York, General Kix was experiencing a sensation entirely new to him, powerlessness within his own system. What do you mean my authorization codes aren't working? He snarled at a terrified technician. The system says you've been placed on administrative leave pending a review of your aggressive communication style, General. There's a mandatory sensitivity training scheduled for. Scheduled this, someone named Karen from Human Resources, sir. At the former United Nations building, now repurposed as the invasion's Earth headquarters, Ambassador Krell arrived on an emergency diplomatic mission. He was met by Jack Henderson, now sporting an ID badge, identifying him as Acting Director of Alien Relations. This is outrageous. Krell chittered. You were classified as a maintenance worker. Promoted, Jack replied casually. Turns out I have excellent people skills. Also, your universal translators had a critical vulnerability that I helped patch. You're welcome, by the way. I demand to speak with Commander Drazatar immediately. He's in a mandatory team-building exercise right now. Something about trust falls, and identifying his spirit animal. Jack consulted his tablet. I can schedule you for a 15-minute window next Thursday. Next Thursday. Krell's mandibles clacked in outrage. Would you prefer to submit a meeting request form? There's only 17 fields to fill out, and the approval process usually takes just under 3 standard weeks. Jack offered helpfully. Unless it gets routed to Dave in processing. Dave's really backed up since we introduced him to what humans call fantasy football. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council received increasingly desperate communications from Earth's invasion force. Messages ranged from formal requests for additional guidance, to one particularly disturbing transmission that consisted entirely of Commander Drazatar quietly sobbing, while what sounded like mandatory karaoke night occurred in the background. In orbit, General Kix's mighty armada remained in position, weapons armed but effectively neutralized by a combination of human ingenuity, unexpected legal maneuvers, and what humans referred to as weaponized bureaucracy. The invasion of Earth hadn't been met with the expected resistance of bombs and bullets, but with something far more devastating: paperwork, procedures, and the peculiar human ability to create complexities where none previously existed. And somewhere in the background, Meera Patel was putting the finishing touches on a plan she'd cheerfully codenamed Operation Administrative Nightmare. Ambassador Krell stood frozen in horror before the Galactic Council's emergency session, his mandibles twitching uncontrollably. Behind him, a massive holographic display showed live feeds from various Earth occupation zones, each more disturbing than the last. What exactly am I looking at, Ambassador? Demanded the Council chair being, a gelatinous entity whose bubbling surface reflected its growing agitation. Krell gestured shakily at the first image. This, honored chair being, shows our draconian elite guards participating in something humans call a flash mob. They were supposed to be guarding a detention facility. The video showed 24 reptilian soldiers in full battle armor performing a synchronized dance to Uptown Funk. And this, he continued, switching to another feed, is General Kix's flagship. The crew has apparently organized what humans term a fantasy football leagues, and are now refusing missions that would interfere with watching the playoffs. This is unprecedented, murmured a crystalline entity from the upper tiers. How are the humans spreading this behavioral contagion? We believe it's transmitted through exposure to human concepts, Krell explained miserably. Democracy. Entertainment. Weekends. The infection begins subtly. First, an alien develops preferences. Then they start asking questions like why and what's in it for me. Before long, they're demanding rights and compensation packages. On the main council floor, Advisor Vexer cleared his throat. If I may, honored council members, I warned that we were underestimating human adaptability. What we're witnessing isn't military resistance but cultural subversion. Explain, demanded the chair being. Humans don't just adapt to new environments, they actively reshape them. When we attempted to impose our hierarchy, they didn't simply resist, they introduced their own chaotic systems that our forces find inexplicably appealing. The council chamber erupted in alarmed chattering, buzzing and oozing, each species expressing concern in their own way. Meanwhile, in processing Camp Alpha 7, Meera Patel sat across from Commander Drazatar in what had once been his office but was now labeled Conflict Resolution Center. The walls were decorated with motivational posters featuring kittens hanging from branches with captions like "Hang in there and Mondays, am I right?" Let me understand, Drazatar said, his once commanding voice now tentative. You're proposing a cultural exchange program. Exactly. Meera nodded enthusiastically. Your troops are clearly fascinated by human culture. Instead of fighting this natural curiosity, why not embrace it? We launch a series of educational seminars. First topic: democracy and you, finding your voice in a multi-appendaged workplace. But our society isn't democratic. Drazatar protested weakly. We operate on a strict hierarchical. Exactly why your troops find it so fascinating. Meera interrupted. They've never experienced the thrill of voting on workplace policies or participating in what we call open-door management. Drazatar's scales paled. The general would never approve. Oh, General Kix has already greenlit the project, Meera said smoothly, sliding across a tablet bearing what appeared to be the general's authorization signature. Right after Jack introduced him to something we call reality television. He's particularly invested in a show concept called Galactic Bachelor. Apparently he's volunteered to be the first contestant. Across the occupation zone, similar scenes were unfolding as humans systematically introduced their alien overlords to concepts specifically designed to undermine rigid authority structures. In a former shopping mall converted to an alien command post, Jack Henderson stood before a group of increasingly interested alien officers. And so, Jack concluded, that's how unions transformed labor relations during Earth's Industrial Revolution. Any questions? A tentacled alien raised 3 appendages simultaneously. This concept of collective bargaining is fascinating. You're saying the workers simply refused to work unless their demands were met. Exactly. Jack beamed. Now for next week's session on strikes and work slowdowns, I'll need you all to complete this simple questionnaire about your commanding officer's management styles. In New York, Carol from HR had organized what she called cultural sensitivity training for the invasion's leadership team. Today we'll be discussing the concept of work-life balance, she explained to the bewildered alien commanders. Let's start with a simple question. When was the last time any of you took a vacation? The aliens exchanged confused glances. Vacation. One finally asked. Paid time off. You know, to relax, recharge, pursue personal interests. Such inefficiency would never be permitted, stated a cybernetic officer. Our duty is constant service to the Galactic Alliance. Carol's expression shifted to practiced sympathy. That sounds awfully stressful. No wonder morale is low. Let's talk about the human concept of burnout and why mandatory rest periods actually increase productivity. 2 hours later, the same cybernetic officer was researching tropical beach destinations and asking pointed questions about personal days. On the West Coast, a group of teenagers had introduced alien security forces to the concept of internet memes. Within days, complex tactical communications had devolved into exchanges of crude image macros featuring grumpy cats and distracted boyfriends. The invasion's central messaging system was now clogged with what humans called shitposting, rendering it nearly useless for actual military coordination. Back at the Galactic Council, Ambassador Krell's presentation had reached its terrifying conclusion. And finally, Krell said, his voice quavering, the humans have introduced something called conspiracy theories. Our troops are now questioning everything from mission objectives to whether General Kix is actually 3 small aliens in a trench coat. Advisor Vexor stepped forward. Council members, we face an unprecedented threat. Humans aren't just resisting physically. They're weaponizing ideas. Each concept they introduce acts like a virus, replicating throughout our ranks and fundamentally altering how our forces function. What are our options? The chair being demanded. Total withdrawal, Vexor replied bluntly. Earth must be quarantined immediately before the contagion spreads further. Already we're seeing signs of infection among relief crews that had mere hours of contact with returning personnel. What signs? Asked a concerned methane-breathing counselor. Troubling behaviors like questioning orders, developing individual preferences, and in one particularly disturbing case, organizing a talent show on a military vessel. The emergency alarm suddenly blared throughout the council chamber. A communications officer rushed in, panic evident in all 6 of his eyes. Honored Council, we've received word that the Earth occupation forces are, he paused, clearly struggling to continue, are forming a labor union. They've elected representatives, and drafted a list of demands including weekends off, casual Fridays, and something called dental benefits. What are dental benefits? The chair being asked in horror. We don't know, but they're insisting on them most forcefully, the officer replied. They're also demanding the right to vote on future invasion targets, and have started a petition to redesign the uniform to include something called casual options. Krell collapsed into his seat, mandibles clicking in distress. It's too late, he whispered. The human virus has already spread too far. On the main view screen, a new image appeared. General Kix, feared conqueror of 30 worlds, wearing a flowery Hawaiian shirt and sunglasses, holding something called a selfie stick as he recorded himself in front of a hastily erected sign reading, Earth, best invasion ever. Greetings, Council dudes, Kix said, his formerly terrifying voice now casual. So the troops and I have been talking, and we're thinking maybe this whole conquest thing is like super negative energy. We're going to pivot to more of a cultural exchange vibe. Also, has anyone told you about this amazing human concept called retirement? Apparently, you can just stop working at some point. Mind blown, right? As the council watched in stunned silence, behind Kix, a group of his elite cybernetic guards could be seen enthusiastically participating in what appeared to be a conga line led by Jack Henderson. The human infection had reached terminal velocity. The Galactic Council's emergency session had stretched into its 17th consecutive hour. Delegates who had arrived in pristine formal attire now slumped in their seats, tentacles drooping, exoskeletons rumpled, and various secretions staining the previously immaculate chamber floor. Order. I will have order. The chair being bubbled weakly, its gelatinous form noticeably less vibrant than when proceedings began. We must reach a decision regarding the Earth's situation before it spreads further. Ambassador Krell, once the proudest advocate for Earth's enslavement, now cowered behind a data tablet displaying increasingly alarming reports. Honored Council, he chittered nervously, the situation has deteriorated beyond our worst projections. 73% of our occupation forces are now actively participating in human cultural activities. The Draconian Elite Guard has reorganized itself as a community theater group, and is staging something called Cats, the musical. What of our reinforcements? Demanded a council member. The reinforcement fleet. Krell paused, mandibles trembling, has established diplomatic relations with humans, and is currently hosting something called a intergalactic food truck festival in Earth orbit. The council chamber erupted in panicked exclamations. The chair being oozed frantically, attempting to restore calm. Silence, it burbled. Ambassador Krell, what options remain? Before Krell could respond, the chamber doors swung open dramatically. In walked a small delegation of humans led by Dr. Meera Patel, Jack Henderson, and Carol from HR. Behind them shuffled a thoroughly defeated General Kix, now wearing jeans and a t-shirt reading Earth. Been there, invaded that. Got this t-shirt. Greetings, Galactic Council, Meera announced pleasantly. We understand you've been discussing the future of Earth-Galactic relations. We thought it might be more efficient if we participated directly. This is unprecedented, gasped a crystalline counselor. No conquered species has ever attended council proceedings. Well, Jack interjected. Technically we're not conquered, are we? More like, unconquered. Anti-conquered. Is that a word? The point, Meera continued smoothly, is that we've prepared a comprehensive peace proposal. She gestured to Carol, who distributed tablets to each council member. This is outrageous. Krell protested weakly. Humans can't dictate terms to the Galactic Council. Actually, Carol replied with a professional smile. According to Galactic law, Section 127b, any species that successfully repels a Class 3 or higher acquisition attempt is entitled to provisional diplomatic recognition. That law was written as a purely theoretical exercise. Krell sputtered. No species has ever repelled acquisition. First time for everything. Jack shrugged. Maybe put a little asterisk next to that rule in the next edition. The chair being had begun rapidly scanning the human proposal, its surface rippling with increasing agitation. These terms are unprecedented. You demand official recognition of Earth as a sovereign planet, removal of all occupation forces, and exclusive rights to produce entertainment content for the entire galaxy. Market research shows there's huge demand for our content out there, Jack explained. Your troops can't get enough of our cat videos and cooking shows. We're just capitalizing on our competitive advantage. Plus, Meera added, we've included a very generous consulting package where we'll help optimize your administrative systems. After seeing your current setup, frankly, it's a miracle you've conquered anyone. The council members exchanged worried glances, their various appendages and sensory organs conveying universal concern. And if we refuse these terms? The chair being ventured cautiously. Carol stepped forward, her HR smile never wavering. We've taken the liberty of drafting an alternate proposal. She tapped her tablet, sending a new document to the council screens. A collective gasp echoed through the chamber. You wouldn't dare, Krell shrieked. Oh, we would, Jack said calmly. Plan B involves us actively exporting human concepts throughout your empire. Democracy, customer service hotlines, reality television, social media influencers, homeowners associations. Meera nodded gravely. We've already prepared training materials on how to organize a galactic workers' union and bureaucracy 2.0, making simple tasks impossibly complex. General Kix, who had remained silent, suddenly spoke up. They're not bluffing, council members. I've seen what they can do. My entire command structure collapsed after exposure to something called office politics. My most elite warriors now spend hours arguing about break room refrigerator etiquette and who didn't refill the coffee maker. The chair being's surface turned a pale, sickly color. We must deliberate on these terms. Of course, Meera agreed pleasantly. While you do, perhaps you'd enjoy some human refreshments. We've brought coffee and donuts. 6 minutes later, the Galactic Council unanimously accepted Earth's terms. 3 months after what humans now called the almost invasion, a new era of galactic relations had begun. The former processing camp Alpha 7 had been converted into the Interstellar Cultural Exchange Center, where alien visitors eagerly signed up for classes on human concepts like weekend hobbies, binge watching, and fantasy sports leagues. Jack Henderson, now serving as Earth's deputy ambassador to the Galactic Alliance, sat across from Advisor Vexer in what had once been Commander Draz's Tar's office, but was now a casual meeting space complete with beanbag chairs and a foosball table. I have to admit, Vexer said, sipping from a mug of coffee, he had developed quite an addiction. I warned the council about underestimating humans, but even I didn't anticipate this outcome. Jack grinned. Your mistake was thinking we'd resist like other species, with weapons and traditional warfare. But humans, we've spent thousands of years perfecting something much more effective. What's that? Annoying each other. Office politics, red tape, bureaucratic obstruction. We turned your military invasion into a corporate merger, then smothered it with human organizational dysfunction. The door burst open as Ambassador Krell entered, now assigned as the Galactic Alliance's permanent liaison to Earth. His once proud posture was gone, replaced by a perpetual slouch. His mandibles clicked in what humans had learned was resignation. Deputy Ambassador Henderson, Krell chittered wearily. I've just received 17 different urgent forms requiring your immediate signature. Also, someone named Dave from accounting needs to discuss expense report irregularities for the last diplomatic reception. Jack smiled innocently. Put them in my inbox, Ambassador. I'll get to them right after my mandatory lunch break, afternoon meditation session, and team-building exercise. Oh, and don't forget, tomorrow is Hawaiian Shirt Day. Krell's antennae drooped visibly. Yes, Deputy Ambassador. I've already selected a festive option. After Krell departed, Vexer leaned forward. There's something I've been wondering. Your species was truly at our mercy when we arrived. Our technology, weapons and resources far exceeded yours. Yet within weeks you completely undermined our entire operation without firing a shot. How? Jack chuckled. You know that old human saying, the pen is mightier than the sword. Turns out the clipboard, spreadsheet and passive-aggressive email are even mightier. On the main plaza outside, Dr. Meera Patel was conducting an orientation session for newly arrived alien diplomats. And this, she explained to the bewildered group, is what humans call a customer satisfaction survey. You'll be required to complete one after every interaction with Earth officials. Your responses will be carefully evaluated, filed appropriately, and then completely ignored, unless they're overwhelmingly negative. In which case you'll be contacted by someone from quality assurance who will apologize profusely while changing absolutely nothing. A tentacled diplomat raised an appendage. This seems highly inefficient. Welcome to Earth, Meera replied with a serene smile. You haven't even experienced our DMV yet. In orbit, the once mighty invasion fleet had been repurposed as the set for Galactic Bachelor, now the highest-rated entertainment program in 7 sectors. Former General Kix had found unexpected fame as the show's charismatic host, his catchphrase, "Will you accept this photon torpedo?" becoming a cultural sensation across the galaxy. The former flagship Inevitable Conquest had been renamed Party Boat Alpha, and served as a combination diplomatic vessel and floating nightclub, complete with what was now the largest disco ball in known space. And in a small office at Galactic headquarters, a junior filing clerk discovered an ancient document labeled, Species Assessment, Humans, with a single prophetic note, scrawled in the margin, "Caution, may be hazardous to administrative stability." The clerk promptly filed it under U for understatement of the millennium.